Why are you giggling?
Because there was a good comment that made me laugh, that made me chuckle.
Was it this
But
one?
we can't. Yeah, that's a good one. Who will start first, the show or Colin Kaepernick?
We are right on time, everybody. Welcome. It is Wednesday. I'm Guy. That's John. And this is our show, Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF, the YouTube channel where you are watching this. If you are watching, like and subscribe. We appreciate it. If you are listening on the podcast, we appreciate that. 5-star review on Apple Podcast and share it with your friends. So thank you for all that. If you're listening, YouTube is in the description. If you're watching, podcast is in the description. Links all around. What's up?
Yeah, we're obviously sponsored. This show is brought to you by Tito's. And you know who I think needs a couple Tito's? Are all the fans in the greater Reno area where actually Brandon Ayuk went to high school after being born in the Sacramento area, went to high school. In our days of the WAC conference, the Nevada Reno Wolfpack used to be an awesome team with this guy called the Little General. He was the coach. He was really good. He developed a pistol with Kaepernick, who took it to the next level, and they were awesome. They were fucking good. They were beating Tedford. They were kicking our ass at Fresno State, and now they stink. They're getting blown out by Idaho. So raise a glass to basically, it feels like Nevada. If you tell me they don't have football in 10 years, I could believe you because they are headed nowhere fast. So
it's very bad.
Cheers to the Wolfpack.
Idaho beat them 33-6 last week, John. Tito's Handmade Vodka. That's who sponsors the show, as John said. America's original craft vodka. Over 20 years of making the best. Distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
I might have a couple actually Saturday night because there's a decent chance I attend the Fresno State football game. Coming to Arizona State, trying to get there. I would imagine they would be the first non-Power 5 team to have 2 Power 5 wins if they pull this off, right?
Well, yeah, yes, they would be because there's only two teams, period, that have 2 Power 5 wins this year. That's Colorado and Utah.
So the Dogs can join. Now, I don't know. I know you were working. I was at Isabella's, which is Greyhawk's bar that Phil Mickelson helped develop. Walking through yesterday, and they had on, it was right at the end of the show. I look up, is it Shane Vereen? Was he there with you on Saturday night?
Yep.
I see Shane Vereen, and then they pan over. It's Aliotti and you, and then they went to UCLA practice, or I don't know, something was filmed, but they had the Pac-12 network on at Isabella's. Maybe that's Phil.
I love it.
Supporting his crew.
I love it.
I like the Dogs this weekend. Don't know anything about this squad, but I like the Dogs.
What's the number? You got a number on that game?
No, but they did go to double overtime against Eastern Washington. So maybe you beat Purdue, you look past a little opponent, go into Arizona State. They definitely can win this game.
Fresno State is -3 on the road at ASU. John, that's outrageous.
It's a golf school. It's a golf school. I'd say baseball school too, but the baseball team's falling on hard times.
ASU played Oklahoma State tough last week. I think they're all right. I think Kenny Dillingham. Did you watch any of that game?
Was that at Arizona State though?
Yeah.
It's like a 7:30 kickoff for Oklahoma State. Like I'm giving. I don't know how good Oklahoma State is. Like I don't know if they're an 11-win team or a 7-8 win team, but that's a weird spot for a team from several time zones away.
No, you're 100% right. I'm just saying when you watch the game, they looked like a real team that competed and played hard and was prepared and well coached. Kenny Dillingham is a maniac on the sidelines. Maniac.
I was like Kirby Smart and Muschamp in their prime.
Yes.
I was watching the local news right before football season started, and there's this guy. I don't know what industry he's in. He's like insurance or something. He's a booster. And Arizona State practices in Flagstaff because like Nevada or whatever, I don't know how you'd have training camp in August in 120 degrees. So you got to go somewhere a little cooler. Jerry, comes to Oxnard. So they go to a place where it's a lot cooler. And this older guy, I Googled him. He was just gray hair, gray beard. Kenny Dillingham said he told them when camp started, he said, listen, this program would not exist without you. He gave him several $1 million for NIL because Arizona State didn't have – they were going to lose their entire team, when Kenny was coming in. All these guys were about to take off. He's like, we were going to be fucked. This guy cut him a check for several $1 million, and he told him, if you want to go into the huddle at camp wherever you want to stand, you pass me because that's what you saved the program. This NIL thing, man, it's pretty wild. Puka Nacua, like all these guys now, when you see a player in the NFL, a young guy, my natural scout is just to type in the guy's name, go to his Wikipedia. I can't tell you how often you go to a guy and it's multiple Power 5 schools. It's like, Wake Forest, Florida State, Iowa. It's just Washington, BYU. It happens, I would say, pretty consistently the last couple of years with draft picks. Just random guys, like in the mid rounds. It's a fascinating thing to follow right now.
Well, I mean, you mentioned Pac-12, so I can give you that one off the top of my head. I think it's 10 of the 12 quarterbacks are transfers. Cam Ward at Washington State transfer, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, DJ Uiagalelei, the guy that played at Stanford eventually the other day against SC when the starter got hurt was a transfer. Cal has 2 transfers. Caleb transfer, Dante Moore not a transfer, ASU, Jaden Rashada not a transfer, but Drew Pine's about to come back. He's a transfer, and Jaden Delora a transfer. Oh, in Utah, Cam Rising's a transfer.
Where'd he start
started
again?
in Texas. Cam Rising's like little Cam Rising. He started at Texas, or like he went to Texas.
Yeah.
So
in fact,
Shador transfer.
Yeah. The Shador thing. They didn't do this the second game, but the first game is like little HBCUs, and then you go to his rivals. It's like Georgia, Florida State, Alabama. It's like I don't know if Shador would have been viewed as Caleb Williams coming out of high school, but let's not act like he's just the little engine that could either. Right?
Yeah, he's not.
If Shador Sanders was Shador Middlecoff and just open for business, I think it's fair to say, especially I think growing up in Florida. He ends up at Florida State, Miami, Georgia, Ole Miss, like in that corridor, right?
Yes.
Clemson, like he's in that mix. I've been watching football long enough to just see some movements in the arms. Like, I think people would have been interested.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
At least they don't do that with Travis Hunter because they can't. Like little HBCU. It's like, no, you were the number 1 overall recruit. You were supposed to go to Florida State. Last second flip-flopped, right? Wasn't that like a historic moment?
Big deal. Yep. Because Prime was like Florida. Remember, Prime tried to get the Florida State job. They didn't want him, so he took the best player. Their best.
Yeah, to feel like, is this going to be the beginning of the end of Norvell? And then 2 years later, he's like, "Fuck you guys."
Yeah.
Derek Ray building the bully.
Derek Ray, baby.
There's a good article right now on The Athletic. I was reading right before I hopped on about the rise of the college football GM.
Oh.
It's just, it basically it started at Alabama with Chris Collins, I think is his name, and he's now, or he was the Georgia Tech coach. I'm pretty sure he got fired, but maybe
Jeff
he's still
Collins,
there.
Maybe
Or Jeff Collins, yeah, that
with
guy. And then most of those guys went to coaching, and then Ed Manowitz. I was just getting to that part in the article, was like a guy that wasn't going to be a coach, was a personnel man, and just the thing shot up like a rocket ship. Then all Saban's guys right around then, 09, 2010, 2011, copied him all over the country. And I talked to our buddy a couple weeks ago, Derek Ray. He has 17 people working for him. 17.
Wow.
That's the GM of Florida State, which maybe if this year they make the playoffs or whatever, but I would say the last couple years they have not been viewed as like a financial windfall of just unlimited resources, I don't think.
Wow. That's incredible.
17.
John, by the way, before we dive into some other stuff, I got a DM from Kwame on Instagram. And Kwame said, you guys want to do a shave it or save it? And I said, yes, send me your photo. And what he sent me was not his photo. He sent me Brandon Staley's photo.
Do you know what's funny? Is I saw this the other day.
We're now looking at a photo.
I saw this, and I think the rule, like most people say with hair, it's directly correlated, obviously, genetics, and typically on your mom's side, not your father's side.
Yeah.
But then people also say that you can have good genetics, and one of the most powerful things in a negative light to any human being is stress. Mm-hmm. And to me, he feels, because it's not often a guy, I would say 43, 44, like has this look, I feel like this happens more in your 20s and your 30s. This feels stress related. Like if you told me both sides of his family, mom and dad, have good hair, I'd believe you. This feels like a guy who deep down knows he's over his head. So when he's doing his political, great question, Mickey, at every press conference, he is completely faking it. As someone told me that worked with him once upon a time, his first NFL job, they said this guy had come from, I think, John Carroll or wherever. I mean, it was not like Alabama, Georgia. It was small school. He said by the time the draft came around, right, he gets hired in January or February, you would think this guy's been working in the league for 20 years. Like, you couldn't convince him of anything. He's kind of a know-it-all, and he's just got that vibe. And clearly it works. He can fool some people, but I don't know how many of the snaps you saw Sunday, he was not fooling Mike McDaniel.
No, it was not.
Who feels like one of the more authentic football guys in recent memory.
Yes. Even though he's not at all a stereotypical football guy.
No, but I'm saying he has been talking, acting, his mannerisms, his cadence has been the exact same since we started hearing him talk for the 49ers a couple years ago, right?
Yeah.
Feels exactly the same.
For those of you new to the show, and a lot of you are, we have occasionally, not for a while, done a segment called Shave It or Save It, where you send us your photo of your balding head. And John, as somebody who's been through the pain, and me who fears it, give you some analysis. I would say my analysis here for Brandon Staley would be not to shave it, but definitely not to keep it so wet on top. Like it just creates all those spots. I would shorten it on top and not slick it. I would just shorten it on top. I would not be at shave it position here for Brandon Staley yet. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he's going with 1983 Pat Riley, kind of slick back, Gordon Gekko, Wall Street look. When you are balding, getting out of the pool or out of the shower and having someone take a picture of you, looking in the mirror is always when you get exposed the most. So like you said, you go with the wet, slick back look. It looks fantastic for the very, very, very tiny percentage of people who can pull it off. Right, Pat Riley, Michael Douglas in his peak. Right, it's a small percentage, but when it is pulled off, it's like that is a badass look. I would say in like the 80s and 90s, before people bicked their head, it has become much more popular the last, I'd say, decade. That was a look that you could be balding and kind of still rock it. Like that he feels much more like a 1983 movie character right there, doesn't he?
Yeah, I guess.
That's not a look you see as often now.
No, it's not.
I would say.
No, I think you're right. That's definitely
it's more of a dated look,
tucked into Dockers with pleats.
Yeah, like just a movie with a shady character in 1987
and cocaine involved.
A lot,
He looks like he should be sweating in that photo more than he appears to be.
Might be
Nicholson. Yeah. So anyway, you can send us your shave it or save it if you'd care to do that. John, Brandon Ayuk. You want to start with this?
Offensive Player of the Week?
The Offensive Player of the Week in the NFL, beating out Puka Nacua with 8 catches for 129 yards, 2 TDs, several of them wide-ass open. He was on KNBR.
Puka, no touchdowns.
Okay. 10 catches on 14 targets.
Stafford didn't even throw a touchdown.
Ayuk was on KNBR. I just want to read you some of these quotes here about Brock Purdy. We talk about it in our offense all the time. If the quarterback can trust we're going to be in a spot where we're supposed to be, then we can complete passes even when we have terrible looks. We can still continue to complete the ball, move the sticks, keep the offense flowing. I think trust is the main thing of that. I'm enjoying playing with Purdy. He gives us confidence every week, gives us a bunch of confidence, so much confidence going every game that we're not only going to win, but you got a chance at a great game. I'm loving playing with him. I'm not sure I can even define what it is, but he has it. He plays with extreme poise and urgency. It's like a mix of poise and urgency. He's never too lagged. He's just always on point. He's on point. He's ready to go. He plays with that swag that just bleeds all the way down to the rest of the offense, down to the rest of the team that everyone can build off of. Like I said, he has it.
Billy Beane's pissed off. You can't say that in his scouting meetings, can you?
Billy had some teams that had some it guys, remember? He traded Cespedes, but...
I actually was around an A's guy within the last couple of months, and he said some of that stuff's overrated. We're nowhere near the analytics of some of these teams around baseball. Like character and the intangible stuff really matters. They listen, this stuff. I'm so glad the games are back, so we can just talk about football and stop overanalyzing stuff that just does not matter. And I think, listen, and I hammered this home in training camp. Not trying to beat a dead horse here. But can we all admit nothing matters less than some training camp practice like August 3rd? I mean, just completions and touchdowns and picks. Like how? I mean, no one ever talked about it with any starting quarterback, whether you were Peyton Manning or whether you were fucking Dan Orlovsky in 2004. I mean, before the rise of social media. It's. I'm not saying that you couldn't find some information about it in the local paper when we were in high school, but it was nowhere near what it's become. And the 49ers definitely led the league in it, and it just shows you truly how irrelevant it all was. I mean, truly. Now, granted, this guy was coming back from injury, and like there is conversation to have, like him playing, him not playing on a given practice. Like, is it because his arm's hurt? But the actual statistics, like it's a game. I mean, it's honestly one of the stupid. I worked for a team and don't ever remember us going over like completion percentage. Grades in meetings and stuff. What?
Grades, GFF grades. You guys would go over the GFF grades sometimes.
Well, yeah, I mean, you would give a guy like, but an incompletion. I mean, hell, you see incompletions in games. Sometimes it's unfair. Like, think about the Mahomes interception 100% Thursday night.
Not just interceptions, like a bunch of other incompletions.
Yeah, I mean, he had like 10 drops.
It'd be like going to a restaurant at 1 PM while a chef is working on a new dish and being like, guys, do not come here tonight. This dish sucks. But he hadn't finished the dish yet. He's experimenting with different things. Then you come in at 9:00 because you eat late and the dish is done. And you're like, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't have judged him on the 1:00 version of this dish because the 9:00 version is the one that he actually put into practice in a real game. I would say this is they never talked about. I mean, they had Garoppolo's back. Did they ever quite go to this level for him?
Jimmy wasn't as good. Like I think it's really that simple. They've upgraded at quarterback. They did all their winning before Purdy with Jimmy, and Jimmy wasn't this good. So this guy's just better. So they've upgraded, right? I think there's probably some. If you really dove in, and I'm not comparing this guy to Patrick Mahomes, but they really liked Alex Smith, right? The core guys. Travis Kelce played with him. Tyreek Hill played with him. A lot of their offensive line. They liked him. But it was pretty clear immediately that was... Now, Patrick was like one of the best players we've ever seen. So it was so strong, and everyone else was going to benefit so dramatically. But I'd say that's a good example of a guy who probably feels like he underachieved because he didn't have a quarterback who could complete as many passes. Like it was pretty difficult. Like it feels like Jimmy hovered closer to, high teens, low 20s. Like that was kind of his max. Like he was never going to be he was never going to have a game like 32 of 43 because Kyle wasn't going to call the game that way.
I mean, he had a couple peak games, but not enough that it was anywhere near what his norm was, right?
Yeah, just on a weekly basis, you can expect, at minimum, if you're Debo or Ayuk, 5 catches at minimum, right? And Debo's a little different because they're going to work in touches for him other ways. But like Ayuk, the only way he's going to get the ball is going to be passing. I guess maybe throughout the season 1 or 2 end arounds, but probably not even. They're more likely to give it to like Ray. It's like I got to have a quarterback who's going to throw the ball. Like I am equipped to play with a top 10 quarterback, right? You put me with someone sweet, people would be talking about me like maybe not like the top 5, 10 guys, but like look at T. Higgins with the Bengals over the last couple of years. He's the number 2, but everyone raves about him. I'm a $20 million a year guy. And that's what I thought it was kind of funny. Obviously, he practiced really hard and had a really good training camp, but he did that last year too. Like I feel like his effort and his focus and his try-hardness has been pretty strong now for like 24 months. Like it's not from like lack of caring or trying, right?
I think the biggest takeaway from week 1 was just that the stuff that, like, I don't know if you saw this, but Sirianni, right after we did the show the other day, Sirianni said I saw it. That the Eagles might have to rethink how they do the preseason because they didn't like the way they started. And my takeaway was, well, no, just how do you practice? Because McCaffrey and Ayuk don't play in the preseason, but they practice for 2 months like the season is here. And look, they were two of the best players in the NFL in week 1. Let me do a little exercise, John. I did with you.
Well, I text someone with the Eagles after I saw you post something about it, that he had, I think Jalen Hurts the last 2 years in the preseason, 9 total snaps. Obviously this year 0. So it's like, and he looked really rusty.
Yeah.
And even texting with people with the Eagles, like, we're not that concerned, but it was clearly a rusty day for a guy that hasn't played.
Especially when you start with Belichick.
100%. I also said that Purdy, is more likely to get above the teens numbers. He had 19 completions, but clearly that was indicative of the game they were playing. Like if the game would have been tighter, that number might have been 30, right? They just by the time midway through the third quarter. You see Trent Williams' quote? I was rooting for them to get first downs because I was exhausted. They kept going 3 and out.
Yeah, I don't think they got a first down until they didn't get a first down until that last drive in the first half, the Steelers. Let me do this real quick because I did it yesterday because Micah Parsons said that he's a top 15 quarterback. And on the surface, it might sound crazy, but I'm just going to read you names. You tell me Purdy or this guy, okay?
Go.
Tua.
I mean, Tua's been pretty
you got to say Tua. And my thing is, John, if you're even hesitating, go with the other guy, and it's still going to end up. Let's see where it ends up, okay?
Let me say this, though. I don't think the 49ers would trade Purdy straight up for Tua.
Okay. So just go if when you hesitate, go with the other guy, and let's see where that gets us. Kirk Cousins.
Purdy.
Stafford.
Am I looking at this through like independent team or like for the 49ers
just like
side?
right now, if you're doing,
if I'm Kyle Shanahan,
no, just QB tiers, okay, like QB ranks. Don't overcomplicate it. So you're sticking with Brock over Kirk.
You see, Cousins' day was not pretty ugly.
Well, Baker knew the signals. All right, so you're sticking with.
I'll go Purdy.
Okay, we should be able to do this in 30 seconds. Stafford. Okay, Mac Jones.
Purdy.
Derek Carr.
Purdy.
Goff. Jordan Love.
Purdy.
Stroud.
Purdy.
Lawrence. Josh Allen. Kenny Pickett.
Purdy.
Justin Herbert. Patrick Mahomes. Anthony Richardson.
Purdy.
Justin Fields.
Purdy.
Sam Howell.
Purdy.
Garoppolo.
Purdy.
Tannehill.
Purdy.
Russell Wilson.
Purdy.
Baker Mayfield.
Purdy.
Hurts and Lamar Jackson.
Those two.
Okay. I shouldn't have done it that way. Deshaun Watson.
I mean, historically, you'd say Watson, but weird just happened.
Bryce Young.
He is making $230 million guaranteed. Purdy.
Dak Prescott.
I mean, Purdy?
I'm going to say Dak because you hesitated. Zach Wilson, no. Dobbs, Ritter, Geno Smith.
Purdy.
Burrow. Rodgers.
Yeah.
So 13. You've got him 13th or 14th. Yesterday I did it. I had him 15th or 16th.
Yeah.
I
think that's the world he's swimming in.
Told you about Goff. See, I think he's better than Goff, but my point is that Micah, and I just wanted to see what you would say because that's what I did yesterday. Yeah, Micah's right. He's a top 15 quarterback.
I think you have to look at it through who Kyle would trade him for, right? Some of those are so like no-brainers, right? The Burrows, the Herberts, the Mahomes, the Allens. They don't even have to hesitate. I do think once you get to the Cousins, the Goffs, I'll say this about Jared Goff, and I truly believe this. He's proven to be like a better version, I think, of Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's just a better passer. Jimmy's more mobile, but if you put him on really good teams, they can have a lot of success. Like, did you realize Seattle plays the Lions this week in Detroit? Like, Seattle, you fuck around, you be 0-2 fast. Like, you watch Jared Goff, they're missing. I just think Jared Goff's got a lot of positive momentum. Like, he's playing his best football. Cousins was that. Remember, it was like early on in Minnesota, like, you're going to pay this guy how much? And then within a couple of years, like, listen, he's got some limitations, but he's pretty good. And I'd argue if they're both playing well, I'd rather have Jared Goff. I think people just like Goff more. I think he's just a better player. Neither of them are athletic.
I think you're just going to be.
But
they would play for the same teams.
But Goff played in a Super Bowl. Like Goff played for a high end, one of the best teams in the league for like 4 years, and now he's on a team that might win 11 games. Who?
Jimmy played in a Super Bowl.
Oh, I'm talking about Cousins. I was comparing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But Cousins and Goff are better than Jimmy in terms of just like the stats. Like I don't think Jimmy has the capability to throw 30 touchdowns. Do you?
No, I don't. Yeah,
that's what makes Jimmy weird. Like, to me, like Jimmy going to go to Buffalo this week and throw like 3 picks? I don't know. He's just a weird player. Then I look at his numbers. He was 20 of 26. God, Jimmy was pretty fucking dialed. I don't know. Jimmy's like the most bizarre player in NFL history.
Well,
but Purdy's not. Like Purdy's just good. Like you watch Purdy,
Purdy's
and this
a
is
bizarre prospect. Like we will never again be 9 games into Brock Purdy's career, wondering if this is really real, right? And Brandon Ayuk is saying, yes, it's real.
But it all gets back to where you're drafted. And when you're drafted really, really low, and he couldn't have been, I mean, it's impossible to be drafted any lower, that just carries with you. So it's like, to me, we would normalize Brock Purdy if he was like a 3rd or 4th round pick. It would feel way less bizarre and crazy and outlandish than it's just like unheard of, like literally unprecedented. Guys in the 7th round, let alone when you're just quote unquote Mr. Irrelevant or an undrafted free agent. And this is what, if you wanted to defend Tony Romo, it's like, well, Tony Romo, a little overrated. He's a little underrated. He was an undrafted fucking free agent. So yeah, if he would have been the 3rd pick in the draft, I think we could nitpick him. Now you can argue once you become an established player, that's actually who you are. But he really represents, like, is he the best or one of the best undrafted free agents of all time? He probably is, because of if you factor in the position. This guy's going to go down immediately if he's just an 8-year NFL starter at quarterback as the best one of, if not the best 7th round picks of all time.
Yeah, well, just period, one of the most valuable draft picks of all time if he's an 8-year starter.
Because you and me could find a million Hall of Famers, obviously in the 1st round, but even in the 2nd and 3rd round, once you really dive into like the 5th, 6th, 7th, like part of Richard Sherman's story is like he was a 5th rounder. He's going to go like Darrelle Revis, top 15 pick. Richard Sherman, and they remember for a couple of years, like still in his peak, they were like compared. Well, there's a huge difference of like J.J. Watt, 1st rounder, and finding some sweet pass rusher in like the 4th round. Like it's just on draft day, and what you pay them for the first several years is just the gaps wide. Like to me, people always get offended, like I feel slighted. It's like you were the 40th pick in the NFL draft, right? You're a running back.
Is it true that Amon-Ra St. Brown got every receiver drafted ahead of him tattooed on his butt?
What round was he taken in?
I don't know, the 3rd?
But I guess I always push back on a guy, like he's a good example if he was drafted in the 3rd. Or even Ayuk, a guy late 1st. But definitely a 2nd rounder, because like I didn't go in the 1st round. Well, if you play slot receiver.
4th.
So, okay, that's an excellent pick. But if you're like a really good like if you're Deebo Samuel, and Deebo's, let's just say hypothetically, doesn't feel like he cares at all anymore. Like he's the opposite. Like, yeah, well, drafted wherever. What am I making now? We're all good.
Yeah, he doesn't have
all the guys. Half the guys ahead of you are just like tackles, pass rushers, and corners. Like it doesn't even have anything to do with you. It's just like other teams need other guys, premium positions. It's just going to naturally knock you down. And whenever I see people super offended, like you go in the 7th round, there's not like, well, I got pushed down a little bit by the run of offensive tackles. No, the entire league, including the 49ers, it's the Lamar Jackson thing. I'm pretty sure they had 3 first-round picks that year. They drafted 2 guys before they got to Lamar. 2.
Just to clear things up, he doesn't have them tattooed. He just has a list. I might have been, I don't even read a whole tweet anymore. I can't even be bothered to stop that long. So
you click on some tweets, they are. I don't know if there's a limit now if you have a blue check mark because you can write forever.
I think there is. I think you can publish a book on there now.
Do you guys understand the consumer in 2023? Audiobooks, man. Do voice messages on Twitter.
On PMT, he rattled them off easily. I think audio's coming. But I do think there's a part of Brock that is not, it's not just about his draft position. It's also about the fact that he hasn't played that much. one thing I did the video yesterday, John, about the Micah Parsons video that I know that you actually sent me. And Mike is like, the one thing we haven't seen him do is like late game comebacks. And it's true. Only Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson had a lower percentage of their passes in the second half trailing last year. I think Brock has like a career total of 25 passes thrown in the second half while trailing. Like he hasn't. Well,
they're blowing a lot of people out.
Yeah, they're blowing everybody out. And Jalen Hurts did it for a whole year. So it's like Brock can keep doing that. And a lot of people thought that I was. It's funny.
Sunday obviously didn't help that cause either.
Sunday didn't help the cause. People like, well, he came back against the Raiders. I got a lot of that. He came back against the Raiders. And it's like, yeah, the point is not that Brock can't do it. It's just Mike is right. He hasn't done that a lot. In fact, most stuff he hasn't done a lot of because he only started 9 games. So beyond his draft position, like, for example, Kenny Pickett is a first-round pick. If Kenny Pickett had still not ever lost a start after 9 games, I don't think we should be saying, oh, Kenny Pickett nailed that pick. It just takes time to prove it. That's all. It just takes time to keep proving it. And that's why this moment in time when it comes to Purdy is so interesting to like hear the things that his teammates say about him, his coaches, the opponents, what our eyes tell us, and try to figure out, is this real? Like, is this really it? Did this guy just break the mold? And the fact that he might have is a pretty big compliment because it's a pretty uphill battle, whether you're the last pick or even if you're the first pick. The odds that Stroud, here's news, right? Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, and CJ Stroud, all 3 of them are not going to be all-pro quarterbacks for the next 10 years. They're not going to be Pro Bowl quarterbacks for the next 10 years. It's not happening, right? And if you just bet against every first-round pick at quarterback, you're going to be right more than you're wrong. It's going to be a winning bet. So, but right now the fun of it is maybe 2 of them will hit. Maybe 1 of them will hit. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And that's the fun of Brock right now, in part, that they're winning while going, maybe this thing can work. And guess what? You can be Russell Wilson or Tom Brady, where those guys weren't throwing for 350 out of the womb, right?
Do you know what Russell Wilson? You know what Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers have in common?
Is this? Do you want me to guess? Because this sounds
like it's about it's about comebacks. The comebacks.
Okay.
He doesn't have any comebacks.
Yeah. Okay.
Both Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson have less comeback wins in their entire career than Derek Carr. As of last year, obviously 2 of these guys have retired since. Only Tom Brady, who has 46, but obviously has a lot less because there's got to be a good percentage of those over those 2 decades in New England where, I don't know, they were easily winning. Matt Ryan and Matt Stafford were the only guys last year of all the active quarterbacks that have more comeback wins than Derek Carr. He has more than Russell Wilson, than Cousins, than Rodgers, than Mahomes, than the Jimmies, the Goffs, the Daks. You fucking name it. So to me, a big part of that stat is, what did the majority of Derek's career entail? Playing for bad teams. Right. Playing for awful defenses, where and some of that is just you're in a lot of shootouts. The Niners' good teams aren't really getting into a lot of shootouts. Hell, when you really think about Tom came into the league and started 7 years before Matt Ryan came into the league, yet Tom Brady only has 8 more comeback victories than Matt Ryan. Well, what do you think a big difference is there? For a large period, Matt Ryan played on defenses where Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF were fucking rotating in. So it's like he's just getting in shootouts. So I think that stat's a little skewed. If you're on a good team, your comeback opportunities more than likely will be cut in half.
Well, yeah, but I agree with you. So there's going to be moments, but when you have to.
Stafford, most of those comebacks are on the Lions, right?
This is why I say it's fine. It doesn't. He will, if he plays long enough, he'll get the chance to do it. And if they win a lot of games, then he will do it. But I think Jalen Hurts having no comeback throws basically last year is evidence that it's okay. If you're on a good team, it doesn't matter. That doesn't have to be the thing you do right away. It's no big deal. It's fine.
I actually think if Jimmy was a better player, his number would be, you could add 5 to 6 because he was in a lot of tightly contested games because they struggled to score with him in the game.
Garoppolo?
Right? Garoppolo. Like, Garoppolo had a chance. If he was just a better player, that number would have been higher. I think it was 12. Like, it probably should have been like 16, and they would have eased into the playoffs. Definitely the 2000 21 year. Now, he had about 7 injuries working at one time, shoulder, a thumb, a toe, a knee. But he had a lot of opportunities in that year. Now, he also had made some, right? He had, I would say, his defining win as a 49er quarterback and play was the Rams game, Week 17, when he led them on the drive. Someone texted me yesterday. They're like, I just went back to YouTube and watched the highlights. Remember Wisnowski got hurt? Robbie Gould had a punt.
And Trent was already out.
Trent was out. I mean, they were down, 17-0 at half. That was a game that I wonder if they end up losing that game. I don't know if you saw, but Ashton Kutcher and his wife were kind of in the news for writing some letters of
Danny Masterson.
Character support.
Yeah.
But it made me think of my favorite Ashton movie in his work was The Butterfly Effect.
Yeah.
And I wonder what the butterfly effect is if the 49ers, that historic comeback, what if Jimmy just throws one of his picks in the second half and instead of going to overtime and winning it in historic fashion, then going on that playoff run against the Cowboys and the Packers, which is pretty crazy. That 3-game stretch is, a defining stretch for Kyle right there. Rams, I know he lost to the Rams the second time, but Rams, Cowboys, Packers. What if you lose that Rams game? You never get that opportunity. Who knows?
Yep.
No,
it's a big part of
is Jimmy even coming back an option? It's just who knows.
Yeah, I know. It's a good point. It's you got enough of those. That's how you build a legacy, which Shanahan has started to build on without winning a championship. That's what's unique. But he's beaten the Rams 8 out of the last 9 meetings. The only one he lost was that playoff loss.
You can build a legacy though as a coach without winning a championship. Andy did it for a long time in Philly. McVay won a championship relatively quick, but I would say he kind of built a reputation within a couple of years, right? Just be having good teams, winning in the playoff games.
Yeah, I'm just saying you build it by having there are other dramatic big ways to stamp your value outside of winning a championship. And Kyle's had a lot of them. Harbaugh had a lot of them.
Well, the key is, right, a lot of guys have got to the Super Bowl and just lost it, and then they just kind of disappear. Think about a Dan Quinn, 28-3.
Right.
He's just, at the end of the day, he's probably a really, really good coordinator. And he's just, would I want to hire him as my head coach? I couldn't. Wouldn't want a defensive guy, but I just think I'd pay him $5 million to be my defensive coordinator. But he's not alone. That, he to me feels more normal than, I don't know, Kyle and Harbaugh are good examples of, I lose you there?
Yeah, that was me.
You back?
I'm back. You back? Let me Do you have me? Do you have me? Do you have me? Do you have me?
1 second, I gotta
reconnect. It's not just you guys. It's us. Let me make a note. Okay, I think I'm good here. You good?
Yeah, let me test.
I hear you.
Okay. Yeah, we're
All
good.
right.
You change Wi-Fi or something?
No, but my Wi-Fi showed it was bad, but people are saying it was both of us at the same time, so I don't know.
It was YouTube.
It was YouTube. Our worst nightmare. I wouldn't be able to function if YouTube went down. Anyway, did you finish making that point?
Yeah, I think that Sean McVay, when he lost, and Kyle Shanahan, and I'd throw Harbaugh in this too, they lost the Super Bowl, and all of them lost in different fashion, right? Harbaugh was getting his ass kicked, lights come off, comes back. McVay loses 13-3. So you lose 13-3, you're thinking all we had to score is 14 points to win a fucking Super Bowl. And Kyle literally had the lead the entire game till the end. So they all lost and pretty devastating, but they all just came back immediately. They're really good coaches.
Yeah.
Now, Harbaugh's in the college, but those two guys, I think Sean showed it, watching that game. He's a real deal coach. And obviously Kyle is. Kyle has a much better team right now than Sean. But if you gave Sean a top 5 or 6 roster in the NFL, his team's going to compete for a Super Bowl every time. And I think Kyle is now proving that. You give him a top roster, he's a Super Bowl contender immediately. And I know I saw, we were going to, the NFL, I've seen a lot of people putting the NFL's top team.
Yeah.
Gottlieb's texting me the other day. He's like, are they the favorite to win the Super Bowl? I mean, to me, the key is in the NFL, probably no different than college, is just like, are you a top 2 or 3 team headed in the playoffs and injuries on your side? Then you got a chance. Because football is a lot different. Like in the NBA, like, do you have one of the best players in the league? Is if you do, you can win the championship, right? In football, it's like, well, how many injuries you got right now? How's your team playing? Because we've seen some teams, right, peak early and then kind of slow down, and then you see other teams kind of pick it up. Like the Patriots and this Chiefs team always figures it out right in December. The 49ers, like, obviously they're really good. We do that. We saw last year. It's, to me, going to be about, like, are 90% of their core guys playing come the first playoff game? Because I don't know how many times in that game you held your breath, but for me it was several. Purdy got hit in the arm. Trent Williams at the end of the game down holding this. One time with McCaffrey, it looked like he kind of slipped weird.
Yep.
And it's just the nature of football. I mean, it probably, every fan watching their team has a play or two a game. Because the sick part about the NFL is, if the equivalent would have happened in the Jets game to Mekhi Becton or Alan Lazard or something, no one would even be talking about that today.
No.
Right? It's no different in the 49er game. Like, Ray broke his wrist. It was like, I mean, it was a training camp story, but if I would have told you that Trent Williams or Hargrave broke their wrist, you'd be like, what the fuck?
Right.
So it's just who gets injured, because you know injuries are coming. Who gets injured is really all that matters. And listen, the 49ers, like, I expect to see, I think we're kind of used to this now. You know, Kittle's going to be on the injury report a decent amount. Mooney Ward feels like he's got some tightness in the lower extremities, right? Which I can live with. He's sweet and he's clearly tough, but he feels like a guy who's probably more likely to have like that 9-year career than like 15, right? Like every other game, it's like, hey, the hammies a little tight. Oh, the growing, it's just an
When did it
abductor.
happen? Yeah.
When did it happen? We don't even think it really happened in practice. It's just, and this is a good example, right? The 49ers now have 2 Chiefs, and I'm not comparing Ward to Mooney Mooney Ward to D Ford, because clearly I know for a fact the Chiefs, like, damage goods. This one, the Niners were probably not alone. A lot of people interested on him, and he's played at a really high level and he started a ton of games. But I do wonder if you really got in deep with the Chiefs, like, we just had some durability concerns long term. He's a good player. He started for us for 4 years on teams going to the Super Bowl. So it's not like we didn't think he could play. That's just something to keep an eye on. Now, it's essentially a 2-year they give him 4 years, but they guarantee $30 million. And I'm not anti the guy, but he makes me a little nervous.
I agree.
I
agree.
I feel like he's on the injury report a lot.
I think, and you said, like, are you going to run out of gas when you get to the first playoff game? I think the key for them is to not play that first weekend, to be the 1 seed. I think what's interesting is, and we talked about this before the Steeler game, and we can talk about it with the Rams. They did not play a top 28 NFL offensive coordinator this week. Okay, Matt Canada in the QB in the OC draft is not going in the top 25. So they're going to get a very different challenge with Sean McVay this week. And if their defense looks the same, then I think you really start looking at, like, who is the best team in the NFL, or if it looks similar. But I think what's interesting with them is they haven't won a championship. And to me, the 49ers have looked consistently, they play like a team that hasn't won a championship, in the sense that they seem to have the hunger of a team that has not won a championship. And if they can play that way for 17 weeks, it would be unlike anything they've really done in the Shanahan era. They had the 1 year, remember, where they had the number 1 defense. They start 9-0 that year. And that would be the closest thing to what we're talking about, where you just watch a team, you're like, these guys are playing with a purpose from jump, right? Like, I saw the line this week on Colorado State's 28 points. And I saw our boy Fortenbaugh on TV today. He's like, we call this a sandwich game. The high of Nebraska with the high of Oregon coming up. This is the sandwich game. I'm taking Colorado State.
It was Eastern Washington versus Fresno State last week at Bulldog Stadium.
Well, I texted him. I'm like, I think it's the wrong move. I think Colorado's got a purpose. I think they're going to kick Colorado State's ass. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I do think one thing that'll be interesting is the way the Niners looked week 1 was different than the way they usually look week 1.
You said that game's at night, right?
That game's a night game. Or after, it might be an afternoon game.
Yeah, but not the 7 a.m. kickoff or whatever.
No. It's not big noon. But
Big morning kickoff.
Big morning kickoff. But I think that that's just the question right now with them. And I think they might. I think they might play that way. It's always health permitting for 17 weeks, 18 weeks. I think the likelihood that they're the 1 seed is high.
Well, I think when you look, what makes it unique, right? I think we all acknowledge, and we'll see. I mean, I expect the Bengals to be okay, and the Bills just, it's a big week for the Bills. The Raiders win all of a sudden, 2-0, 2 road wins. I'm not even kidding there. If the Raiders were to win this week, I mean, I would start being like, could they make a wild card?
Play the Bills.
They play the Bills at Buffalo. So, yeah. They should not win. I would imagine the line in the middle of the summer on this game would have been like Buffalo -9. But that's a weird Buffalo game. But my point is, Buffalo, Cincinnati, the only team right now that really is just trying to add icing to the cake is the Chiefs. The other 5-6 teams in the Niners category, right, the top tier, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Niners, none of those teams obviously have won, right? I mean, this iteration of the Eagles and obviously the Cowboys haven't sniffed the NFC Championship. And then Buffalo and Cincinnati. So you have all these teams that have been right on the cusp these last couple years. I know Cowboys haven't been as close, but in theory they should have been. They had a home playoff game 2 years ago. They were right there with the Niners. The Eagles were in the Super Bowl last year, bring everyone back. The Bengals got to a Super Bowl. Last year they got to the AFC Championship game, and the Bills have keep getting knocked out by the Chiefs or the Bengals. So it's no one's won anything. My point is no one's gotten over the hump. And I think you saw it this year with the Denver Nuggets. These motherfuckers won it. So it's are the Niners the best team of that group that also is the healthiest and playing the best? Well, clearly I would say week 1 it was them and the Cowboys. They just came to fuck shit up. The difference, though, is I give you a little less credit. If the Niners had done that to Seattle or the Rams week 1, it'd be well, divisional opponent, them so well. The Cowboys have beaten the Giants 12 of the last 13 times. They own the Giants. Yeah. Now, that was even a different level. But when you do it to an uncommon opponent, give you credit. So I think right now, most people, whatever the rankings mean, the Niners clearly one of the best teams in the league. But I guess you need games to validate, but we knew it based on last year and based on everyone they're rolling back. I guess the one question was, is Purdy just going to keep doing it? And the answer is clearly yes.
Also, they have a new defensive coordinator. Now, Steve Wilk's a high-level coach, but they did have a new defensive coordinator. That's not nothing.
But I don't think it's very often, even teams in recent memory that guys have been fired, if you have really good players on defense, like last year's Bronco team or some of the years with Flores in Miami, if you got good players on defense and you get a defensive court, your defense is probably going to be pretty good. It's one of those offense is a little more nuanced play calling.
Offense OC gets fired.
Yeah, but if I give you Hargrave, Bosa, Armstead, Jackson's taking a step, Warner, Greenlaw, and 7 defensive backs and one guy in the middle just crushing people, it's going to be hard to stay. I'm not trying to diminish Wilkes, but I just think they got really, really good personnel on defense with every guy that started last year's coming back and adding Javon Hargrave.
Kyle Shanahan provided the following pre-practice Niner status report. No practice for Dre Greenlaw today, groin injury. That's a Mayoko tweet. Tracy Sandler added, Shanahan called it just wear and tear, which I guess would be...
He's a wear and tear guy.
Which is good news, wear and tear week 2. It's not great news, but,
I'd also put him in the Mooney Ward category of just a lot of wear and tear on the lowers. Hammies, that area, that region. He's just got, and that's maybe a great athlete problem that I can't relate to. But do you agree? They just... A lot of just muscles yanking a little bit with those two.
Yeah, a lot of muscle yanking. No doubt about it. Rams, Niners have won 8 of 9. I texted Papa today. I said, Greg.
Is the one missing the one they lost for all the marbles?
Yeah. NFC Championship game was the loss.
Would they trade 8 of those for that? I guess the problem is you couldn't, because if they would have lost the regular season game, they never would have the opportunity to play.
Good point. I texted Greg today. I said that, Greg, I don't know if you've noticed, but Brett Maher kicks extra points from the left hash. Something to watch.
What'd he say?
Moody kicks from the middle of the field, John. Something to watch. He hasn't replied.
Do you feel Papa? Maybe it's the colors. Maybe he did this back in the Raider days. But I feel he takes extra pride in wearing the Niners team gear.
He dressed like Kyle in an interview with Kyle the other day. Did you see that? Yeah, the Niners red hoodie and the Niners like the Kyle hat, the ham hat that we made with the square patch in the middle of it.
I'd be lying if I've seen every team's play-by-play. I would say the overwhelming majority of them do stuff like that, right? Do interviews with the head coach and the GM and players throughout the week, either for the website or the way they do it, for NBC. I feel like Greg by far is the closest in terms of attire. I mean, a lot of guys, Mitch Holtis, Chiefs polo, right, pair of slacks or something. I mean, Greg just looks like, hey, man, you need an assistant line coach?
He does.
Does Adam Peters need a guy up there? You got 10 guys you want me to take a look at, that are underclassmen right now? He's just ready to like mix in immediately to the operation.
Sneaky
like,
good
do you
calves
need
when
me
I
to
saw him
hand
out
you
at
the
practice.
mic and start? I can do write-ups right now. You got any college guys you want me to take a peek at?
He probably does the thing where he like, I know you didn't ask, but I'm a doer. So here's 10 pages scouting report. Kyle.
Yeah, 100%.
One of those
like, hey,
what Jed Fish did to get a job with Steve Spurrier,
Exactly. Like, hey, we're
Projects.
flying down. Hey, John Adam, I know you're flying down to LA. I see the Trojans are playing at 8. Were you guys planning on going? I'll come with you. One of those. Definitely. Phil Savage, when he was doing Alabama radio, I think used to be a week ahead and always give Nick something on Sunday.
I'll tell you, when I saw Greg at practice in like the Niner long sleeve and the shorts, he could have jumped on the field. You wouldn't have known. Because he's good. He's like good calves. Good calves. Not
Mickelson
John Lynch
level?
calves, but good calves.
But you do feel like, I feel like he was less like, hell, maybe the Raiders didn't have extra gear in the facility for him.
Could have been that.
Limitations, budget. But
yeah. Could have been
I don't
that. You watched the Rams Seahawks game?
Yeah, I had it on. Do you have trouble signing in to your NFL Plus?
It's a tradition unlike any other. Are you kidding me? It's the worst.
For some reason, I can watch it on my iPad, but on my monitor here, it doesn't even exist. I don't know.
It's so annoying.
I did. I flew. I realized halfway through, like, I got to Google half these players for the Rams. Like, who are they playing with? And they look pretty good.
Yeah, I was like, who is K. Williams? K1? Is that you? Running back? But
Crazy thing is, like, 10 million people,
Notre
Dame fans all over the country know exactly who that is.
I know.
I didn't know him either. I'm not claiming.
Stafford
to,
looked
but-
good. Stafford looked good. I mean, they're playing. Look, I do think I know everyone loves like.
Should it be a 7.5 point line, regardless of how young and unproven their players are after that?
Yeah, it should be a 7.5 point line. Partly because the way the Niners looked last week. Partly because the Niners beat them twice last year by multiple scores. Right. Partly because despite the efforts of all the local podcasters, Kelly Stafford, it's probably going to be hard for the Rams offense to hear at SoFi because of the number of Niner fans that go.
Was that AI story? Did you see that? Is that real?
Which one? Allen Iverson?
They're putting like AI bots, putting them in Rams and Chargers gear in the stadium. I don't know. Maria forwarded me something on Instagram. I didn't know. I couldn't tell if it was like a meme or.
Are they supposed to like make noise? Is that the idea?
Yeah, and you just put them in the Rams jersey. They're like robots, So basically, like I guess the team would buy the tickets because clearly there's going to be a home game.
Yeah. So I mean. I think the line's fair, but I also I don't care how many times in a row Kyle Shanahan beats Sean McVay. I have a very high level of respect for Sean McVay and his operation. And you're not playing Matt Canada this week. You're not playing Matt Canada this week, right? Like you're playing a coach who could fucking do some crazy shit to you.
Movie promo.
Oh, it might be the thing with the little AI kid. I think it's that. You seen that commercial?
No. Is that what they're doing now with the writer's strike?
AI kid movie. So anyway, I don't know. What's your take on what do you think of that line? 9 or 7.5?
Yeah, I mean,
Open at 4.5.
If I was a bookmaker, it feels like once you get plus the touchdown, just given that I think we give Purdy after the Purdy experience of going, well, you know what? This guy went to a program that was typically undermanned when he'd play Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Texas, right? Most of the teams he was playing in his conference, they were like middle tier at best in terms of the recruits, even though I know he had Breece Hall, but for the most part, Iowa State is not some top-tier Big 12 program, at football at least. I wonder if Matt Stafford, because watching him in that game, think how many years he just had one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
Or as the season went and, Calvin Johnson or whatever got hurt, he was just on a team that was going to win 5-6 games. And the league respected him so much because that fucking guy would put up numbers. He would just keep his team in there. He could just play. And the one thing that I wrote this team off on is I was like, well, he's just going to get hurt because his elbow's going to go a little bit like a baseball pitcher. Well, that guy that we witnessed is the guy they traded for. That's the guy that Kyle Shanahan wanted. That's the guy that the Rams ultimately, they both wanted Matt Stafford, kind of like Christian McCaffrey last year, and the Rams had I don't know if it was an inside job, but ultimately I think the Lions would say, listen, you think we just took Jared Goff because I like Jared Goff. We need a quarterback, and look, it's working out pretty well for us. So the Niners could not provide that. And I guess they technically could have traded Jimmy Garoppolo, but I don't know if, maybe the guy liked Jared Goff more than Jimmy Garoppolo, right? He was a Rams scout, the GM.
Yeah.
But ultimately, my point is, the version that we saw against Seattle was the version that Kyle and Sean got smitten for and traded for, right? That's how he looked to me, just slinging it around, how comfortable he looked. He just looked good. I mean, he's
healthy. John, they didn't have Cooper Kupp, and he threw for 330. Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua each went for 120.
Well, remember last year, McVay, one of his classic Gruden moments where he just all of a sudden he's like, oh, this guy, they hate Cam Akers. They told him, don't show up. He's in the doghouse. Cam Akers says, trade me, cut me. And then by the end of the season, they've made up. They had a come to Jesus moment. They're friends again. By the end of the season, Cam Akers toting the rock. You're watching. It's Cam Akers just a member of the squad running the ball. I mean, to me, their running game, just the two guys, obviously the young guy from Notre Dame, Williams, and Cam Akers, and then just all their receivers. Say this about Puka Nacua. He kind of plays a little like Cooper Kupp. It's just that's their guy. He's wearing a team number. Stafford was comfortable with him. McVay had an unreal fourth down play call that was a walk-in. McVay's a real coach. Pete obviously is too. I wonder if Seattle was a little college football team-ish where they were kind of feeling themselves. Because they were winning at halftime, but it was just, I think it was 13-7, and then they just I thought they got boat raced in the second half.
Well, they had 12 yards of offense in the second half.
Not good. I thought DK shoved a guy, got a penalty, and Pete, I think, said on his radio hit yesterday, him and DK had a closed door meeting.
DK would not. They didn't get the penalty at first, got away with it, and then the Rams kept kind of instigating him, and he couldn't resist, and then he got a penalty. Yeah,
he's got to be one of, if not the best looking non-lineman, just standing there in a jersey. It's God, I want this guy on my team.
Did you? Oh, I know. Did you?
You could argue it's an all-time crazy that individual went at the end of the second round. No one just pulled the trigger the end of the first.
I know. I don't know about you, but I watched the game, and I was God, Gino. I mean, I keep wanting to write him off, but he does just not many guys throw the ball pretty as him. And then you look, he's 16 to 26 for 112. It was. Bizarre.
I agree. He had one play where he's kind of he was pushed out of the pocket, kind of scrambled, and then he just let this ball rip. Beautiful spiral, hit this guy in the hands. I'm that's a beautiful throw.
Yeah.
It looked better than the numbers.
But that's, we know the Niners have their number. I mean, one of the Niners play Seattle first. I don't think it's for a little while.
Well, someone said, obviously last year was a little bit of an outlier. It's the circle of life. Rams own Seattle. Seattle, until last year, owned the Niners. Right, and then the Cardinals just do weird shit. Cardinals I could see them winning a random divisional game. I could see honestly, I could see the Niners being fucking 13-1 and absolutely mailing it in. It being 10-10 in the third quarter. Are they even awake? They got that in them. We've seen it every year. I mean, it's football. Whether it happens against the Cardinals, yeah, it will happen. They got an egg written all over them against a team drafted in the top 6. It's
a bad win for the Cardinals, then, is what you're saying. An accidental win.
It was really more about the mail-in job.
I've thought you made me think. It hit me yesterday that the Aaron Rodgers what the NFC Championship game felt like is what the Aaron Rodgers thing feels like. Robert Saleh said today he'd be shocked if Aaron retires. He thinks his plan is to rehab and come back in 2024. My initial reaction was, I think we've seen the last of Aaron Rodgers. But the one thing you
think he cried?
I don't know. Did you see he said, "Sorry, kid," to Garrett Wilson? He's like Mickey Mantle or something.
When did he say that?
In the locker room. He's like, "Sorry, kid."
Not funny, but kind of is.
Yeah, not funny, but is. Terrible. I mean, I'm sad just because I was like I was legitimately bummed, even though I expected it, because the way he got up and walked, I was like, I don't know. I expected it, but still was bummed.
I didn't believe it, and then I think Troy mentioned something at the beginning of the second half. It's like, did someone whisper something in their ears? Because clearly they knew, right?
Well, yeah.
Does Aaron know right when he hits his butt, you think?
I think Aaron knew. And I think that's why he reacted the way he did. Because when you know now, like we've all had buddies that pop an Achilles, and they all tell you right away, like, it was weird. And then right away I was like, oh, fuck. I think you just know. It wasn't like a broken ankle would have really hurt. He just knew. But Garofolo today made a comment. He's like, you don't let it out when you know, because you don't want the players or the fans in the stadium to find out. I was like, it made sense. Like you don't want like the Andrew Luck retirement, right? Like you don't want that scene happening. Not that they would have booed Andrew. Remember when Andrew Luck got booed walking off the field in Indy because Schefter reported that Andrew was about to retire?
You're acting like they might leave?
Yeah, that's what Garofalo says. He's like, you're afraid the fans are just going to get so bummed and leave. I thought, to me,
you see the historic number for the ratings. Yeah. I wonder if a decent amount, because if you didn't gamble on the game, it's football, so you'd watch it. I mean, it could be like Jags or Texans. People just kind of still pay attention. I felt this way. I just kind of kept watching, hoping for an update.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was a decent 3 or 4 million people that are like, listen, this game doesn't mean anything to me anymore. I feel like a huge letdown, but I'm going to watch till they say, like, he has a high ankle sprain, or he broke a bone, or his Achilles. Like, you just kind of waited, and they teased you a little bit, but they didn't. You broadcasters, I saw that Joe Buck was like, you prepare all off season, and then you get thrown a curveball. It's like, it's not that complicated. Aaron Rodgers goes out. You fucking.
You're saying for him, he said he got thrown a curveball?
Well, he just kind of hyped up, like, you just got to be prepared for it all. Like, it's not that difficult.
Oh,
obviously,
right.
It sucks. Like, the hype of the game, you could feel it leave the stadium.
Also, it's not when like Cooper Rush came in. Like, you'd already had the research on Zach Wilson in your head.
100%. And to me, what sucked is, like, that game, I mean, honestly, he clearly got hurt in the 4th or 5th play, so I didn't even have time to tweet this, but I almost tweeted, like, I like taking subtle shots at, like, Adam Silver. That game was just such a good example. Like, when it just kicked off in the moment, and there were other variables, 9/11 and stuff, but that, even if it would have been 9/12 or 9/10, I think it would have felt the same because of the Rodgers thing against the Bills, one of the powerhouses. You can't tell me that just the vibe on your TV, if you fell asleep for 6 months and I just plopped you and you didn't know what day it was, and I would have been like, this is Monday Night Football of the playoffs, right? Or this is the night game on Saturday of the second round. Like, it has that's what football, and obviously Dion, Adam Silver, they just had to pass a law to get people to play on national televised games. Like in football, you can't fake when you really add like star players and stuff, the power of like, this is incredible TV. That's what sucked about him going down. Obviously, it's Aaron Rodgers, and that sucks for like ruins their season. But it was like this game in a vacuum felt like I'm watching a national championship or something.
Yeah. And every one of their games, if it was good, was going to feel that way, right? They played Dallas this week.
Yeah, they're still going to have, just because the way they play defense and stuff, but how do you...
I thought the stupidest thing the last 2 days was people trying to figure out who their next, like, who can they get? Like, what the fuck are we talking about? What do you mean, who are they going to get? What is so idiotic? Who are they going to get?
No.
Who are they going to get? Nobody. What do you mean, who are they going to get?
Aren't they kind of screwed too? Because he's going to come.
Ryan?
Isn't he kind of coming back? It's just like, could they trade for someone? DM me like, could they trade for Kyler Murray? Well, they still owe Aaron $75 million the next 2 years. They're going to take Kyler Murray's $230 and then just figure it out next year. Like, no. Part of this is economics, right?
Mike White.
You can't trade for Kirk Cousins.
You can't trade for Mike White. He's 4 years, $8 million. You can't go get Mike
Yeah.
White. But I don't
No,
even know. Like, I have been. I'm not.
They owe a second-round pick next year for Aaron Rodgers.
At least
right?
it's not a
So it's like,
I have been baffled often by like the what's the word? Not the narrative. The discourse. This one blew my mind. Like, what do you mean? Who are they going to get? Are you guys insane? Half the league hates their quarterback, and the Jets are going to find a second quarterback somewhere? No, they're not getting anybody. I mean, they could get somebody, but no one's saving them. I'd play Dak, but I mean, he was pretty bad the other day.
but he actually kept some plays alive. Like you do have to have a mobile quarterback with their offensive line.
Jacoby Brissett, right? That doesn't work. He'll get hurt in 1 week.
I wonder if Zach is just. I mean, he's 38 years old. Colt McCoy sucks. Colt McCoy is. He had one good game against the Niners. You remove that game, it mostly sucks. He mostly looks like Zach Wilson.
Exactly.
The other thing, if I'm Woody Johnson, it's like, listen, guys, this sucks. This is no one's fault. This is a freak deal. Maybe it's not a freak deal,
fault, but
yeah, it's like
oldest left tackle in the league.
Hey, Nate Hackett, why are we going 5 wide? Why? And I saw someone. I don't know if Diana Rossini, highest paid athletic writer currently, I read, is there was like Aaron did not like some of the schemes with the cut blocks. He wasn't into that, and he like told the coaches like I don't like because like that play is a good example of like you just cut the guy. Well, if you miss, he just gets a free release like on that play, and clearly I don't think they were on the same page on that. Even though it feels like that's his BFF, weird deal, kind of Aaron pointing fingers, but. Why didn't you just run the ball like every play? Start the game off. Just
settle.
Hammer just settle. But to me, what does Aaron love? 4 or 5 wide. He's like Mike Leach. That's like his style. It's like Aaron. What are we doing here?
One of my takeaways from Hard Knocks, which was really good, was that Aaron's not the top tier commander type leader that the coach needs. I was watching. I'm like an episode behind, but they had a practice and like. Couple drops, missed block, and Aaron just starts pouting and like, "What are we doing?" You know, that whole thing. I think it was going to be a weird season for them if he was healthy, but I don't know. Maybe it would have been really successful. We all got robbed of seeing it.
Well, that's the Ashton Kutcher butterfly effect. If Aaron never gets hurt, does Josh Allen throw 3 picks and have a fumble? Because everything dramatically changes in the game once the guy's out. It just does. Now, I don't know. Maybe he does. He's been playing shitty, but that's the unknown. The crazy part about this is like forever Aaron Rodgers he's the Green Bay Packers quarterback. Like if he had torn his Achilles to the Green Bay Packers, we'd be like, God, that's a team done in the NFC, right? Maybe not now that Jordan Love actually might be functional, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's completely irrelevant to all the NFC teams. Honestly, the only team is relevant to is the Packers. Like fuck, we wanted that first round pick because even if they have success, you don't care. You're not in your conference.
Yeah, 60% of the snaps I think was the number. It's obviously
65.
Close to that.
God, bro, he got 4. He got 4.
What?
I think that's the worst when you factor in the variables, because obviously Steve Young got KO'd on Monday Night Football. He had a decade as the 49ers starter, won MVPs. 4 snaps, trade for Aaron Rodgers. 4 snaps. I think it's the worst injury, or it's the most shocking injury, I've ever seen.
Part of what makes it so bad, like to your point, is how high you were on the guy. Like you got an MVP. You didn't just get. It's not Matt Flynn that got hurt. It's Aaron Rodgers that got hurt.
Factor in the franchise. I think you also got to factor in like how happy he felt. Like God, this guy's really into the season.
Also, watching Hard Knocks, like every practice, like 8 things would go wrong, but then it'd be like, well, at least we got Aaron. They'd all look around like, well, at least we got Aaron on offense.
I was thinking about that too. Like, what's the pivot in the meeting today? Like, hey guys, I know we said no matter what happens, we got a chance to win every game because of Aaron Rodgers. Now we're never going to see him the rest of the year, so we don't have a chance to win every game. So we got to be extra good. Like, that's what sucks. I think if Robert Saleh were to find a way to go above 500, you'd give him a contract extension.
Yeah.
To have this happen, but also if they could easily probably end up winning 6 or 7 games, and the way the NFL works, like he would not. I could just, if you're the owner, you're like, listen, Aaron got hurt, but the reason we suck is because this guy you drafted number 2 overall was really the shittiest player we've ever seen. Honestly, 2 of them, right? Because Becton, too. I mean, 2 of their guys they drafted in the top 10, 1 quarterback, 1 tackle. If they suck, football's long, man. You just got a lot of time to think between games. You start losing, especially if they start losing a lot of games, like 13-7. The way they're going to lose,
I think they're going to be okay. Their defense is so good.
Well, I know, but if they don't win, the games are all going to be low scoring. So you're going to be like, we just wasted one of the. What if they have like the number 1 scoring defense in the league and go 7-10?
You think you can go 7-10 with the number 1 scoring defense in the league, with like clearly legit running back and a sweet number 1 receiver?
Well, think how good their division is.
God just doesn't want Nathaniel Hackett to be a successful play caller. He put him in Denver, then got stuck with Russ. Then he gave him finally. Aaron's going to carry him, and he gets hurt. Yeah.
I don't know, man. Maybe Saul can spend more time with his 15 children.
I like Robert. Man, I am all in on Robert Saul after watching Hard Knocks. I'm a believer in Robert. All right, anything else to add today? People keep asking.
Giants are in trouble.
Lock of the week. Yeah, Kyle Harrison's not pitching well right now. I don't have a lock of the week yet. Do you?
Yeah, probably be Giants at Arizona. I could see them just. It's going to be a team that lost last week. I'm tempted to go Steelers against the Browns. It's to me, it's all that's just the way week 1, week 2 works, especially with a decent team.
How about Bills at home against the Raiders? Big number though.
What is the number?
8.5.
I think the move is to stay away from the large numbers early in the season. Because you're just, even, that's my thing with the 49ers. Like, the Rams may end up winning 5 games, but you're going to get their best when Stafford's healthy, McVay's, not sleep deprived. Their young players have momentum. Things are just weird in the beginning of the season. Just, I don't know. I think it's really hard to gamble the first 2 weeks. I mean, look at last week. I mean, honestly, I love the Steelers +3. I don't like really betting against the Niners, but that was a game that it was like,
yeah,
you knew right away. You're like, yeah, that's a fucking terrible bet. I think I like I like the Giants too. Plus, like they were like +4.
Yeah.
I mean, the Pats were like +7. They covered. Everyone was covering. A lot of. I think the home. I think I read a stat like the home team against the spread was not good. Like the road dog was.
Mm-hmm.
I think like 11-4 or 12-3. You know, it looked that way.
Yeah, Lions won, Bucks won as an underdog.
Cardinals covered.
Titans covered. I'm just going through
Packers I think were +1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Raiders.
Rams won as an underdog. Raiders won as an underdog. Dolphins won as an underdog. Yeah. Bills weren't an underdog. Actually, Jets covered. So.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, thanks for hanging out.
Bills were favored in that game.
Last week, yeah, Bills were favored against the Jets. 2.5. Jets won and covered.
The Titans covered.
Well, I guess obviously the Jets won. Gotcha.
Titans covered even though they lost.
Yep, Titans covered. So. All right, y'all.
Adios, people.
Later, y'all. Thanks for hanging.